Personally, I've had a lot of experience in design. I started off my career as an industrial designer, designing the shape of the products, designing later on as I moved down the line. I actually moved down the career and designed even software design, not just hardware design. I've done everything from a car to what should be within an aircraft to medical. When I talk about medical, I'm talking about medical devices that go inside the body. Right? So I've got a variety of experience across industries and more than 30 plus years of experience in design. So I'm very thankful for my privilege to be on this panel.
Hi. My name is Rajiv, Aramadaka. Well, I'm a mechanical engineer with a double master's in design and manufacturing. I represent this company called as Dassault Systems. Well, they're known for their design software or virtual product creation software called as SketchUp. So I had this particular brand in India. Well, design is at the helm of everything. We see our customers right from the biggest car makers or flight makers to the guys who do even toothpaste. So you can always say what's there to design and toothpaste. There's a big design world out there. So as the session progresses, we'll see how design can influence the startups or the hardware tech projects.
Hey, hello everyone. My name is Nazir and I work as a sales manager with ARM. I've been with the semiconductor industry for the past 15 years. I spent like 8 years at Intel doing product design, tablets, mobile phone and laptops. And now I'm with ARM. I don't know how many of you here have heard about ARM. Oh, okay, just one person. Oh, okay, some show of hands. That's nice to know. All right. Every one of you in this room, right, are probably having multiple ARM processors now, right in your pocket, right? Around more than 95% of mobile phones in this world use ARM processors, and every application you can actually think about would probably be having ARM processors in them. So we are a processor IP company. We don't manufacture processors. What we do is we design processors and we let our partners manufacture them. So my expertise is around processors and semiconductor market, and over the course of discussion, I'll share my thoughts on how startups can actually benefit in this market. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Nazir has made my job much easier. He is a processor IP company. IMEC is a technology IP company in a nutshell. IMEC is the largest independent technology, nanotechnology research center in Europe, and the core of IMEC is semiconductor scaling. So apart from that, IMEC does a lot of work in the cutting edge technologies, right from automotive radars to life sciences to silicon photonics to opto interconnects. My introduction is I have basically 18 years of total 18 to 19 years of experience, and most of my experience is in the semiconductor product development. I am with IMEC only for last 1.5 years, and here the role is more of a business development.
Thank you very much. So rather than me giving you a bhashan sitting here, we'd like to actually listen to your questions and try to maybe negotiate around that and what is everybody's take on it, so that to benefit you and designs. What is the biggest problems you guys are facing in design startups?
Integrated design. That integrated designing is the most.
Integrated designing. Pulling all your materials, mechanical, electronics, electrical, software, everything together, including the industrial design.
Yeah, we have to put a framework first and then common stuff.
Who would like to take this question? Srinath.
So, if you look at, so I was fortunate enough to study under one of the top management gurus that India has produced, Dr. Singh, when I was a student. So, he used to tell me that for you to predict the future of design, you have to, or not the future of design, for you to predict some kind of a future, you have to look into the past and learn from those experiences. Right? So your question about various disciplines coming together, right? And how do I realize these various disciplines that are coming together? It's a very valid question, and it is not an easy answer. Okay. So if you look into the past, what happened? Okay, let's look at possibly about 100 years back. So the first factory that came out that was producing these designs, right, was from Henry Ford. Right, he set the first assembly line. I mean, before that there were some more, but the first real mass assembly line was from Henry Ford. Right? But if you look at what his market was, he said you can buy any car as long as it's black in color. What did he mean by that? He said that there's only one variant. Right? 15 years back, Dr. C.K. Ballard gave the concept of n equal to 1, which is nothing but mass personalization or mass customization. Right? So today, we are actually experiencing the concept of mass personalization. So in 100 years, what has happened is one product, one variant. Today, you have unlimited variants. So that is the shift that we're seeing. And because of that shift, you have to now design products. So if you again go to Henry Ford, what he did, he said that I cannot have one person do every job. I cannot have one person design, I cannot have one person build a tool for that, one person do the manufacturing, one person do the assembly. So he could not have one person do everything. So what he did is he created silos. Right? And that worked at that time because he had to scale up. Right? Previous session about scaling up. How do you scale up? By distributing work, by creating silos. Right? But today, you are at a stage where these silos have become a bottleneck for you to integrate various disciplines. Right? So now you have, luckily now, technology is also changed. So my suggestion is to leverage technology to break those silos and to create an integrated product. Right? So you have, for example, if you're doing electronic design, you have EDA tools. If you're doing mechanical design, you have MDA tools. Right? You have your ECAD softwares, your MCAD softwares, and then you have your simulation softwares. So all these have to be integrated in one platform. Otherwise, you would still be struggling. I mean, you might design. So take the example of a vehicle, right? So or an aircraft or any industrial machine. Right? If you look at any, let's say, a machine that produces paper, stick, right? So if you look at that, any machine or any car or airplane will have multiple characteristics that have to be kind of balanced. Because in one area, if you're generating heat, in another area, you have to suck that heat out. Right? So you need to have fluid dynamics, you need to understand thermal, you need to understand all these various disciplines along with envelope of your product, which is the industry design. Right? So it is a combination of mechanical, electrical, electronics, and software. These are, I would say, the four primary areas where we have to merge these together. And technologies are available today. So we can talk about technologies later on, but that is how you would navigate these issues.
Okay. So maybe I would like to add what's happening in the semiconductor market, right, and give you a background of the industry scenario. I understand there are many startups over here working on ESDM and VLSI design. So I would like to share some thoughts of what's happening across the industry and present you a picture about how the future of technology could actually be, right? So, and following me, I think Jatinder will talk more from a manufacturing and manufacturing technology perspective. Right? So, if you look at it, if you're a startup working on semiconductor or hardware design, electronics, right? This is probably the best time for us, right? I mean, the industry has never been so good. The industry has never been so good. If you look at 2017, the growth was 21%. 21%. The requirement for computer chips actually skyrocketed. The price of memory chips actually doubled, and we see that trend going forward in 2018 as well. Interestingly, this was driven by data, right? So Simon Segars, who's the CEO of ARM, recently made a statement. He said that data is very well established as a new oil of the digital age. So it's comparing data to the new oil. I mean, oil drives our normal economy, right? And it is data which is going to be driving the digital economy. So what does it actually mean? I mean, it's a very interesting comparison, right? If you look at it, every one of you in this room is probably going to fall into one of these three categories, or perhaps more of these categories. Okay, either you're in the business of creating data, right, or you're in the business of transmitting data, or you're in the business of processing data. Right? Think about it. Try to relate your work in one of these categories. Right? You can relate to either one or more of these categories. And there is so much innovation happening in all these three areas that I think it presents tremendous challenges and opportunities for all of us over here, including startups and the very well established companies. I'd just like to give a quick overview of these three categories. To begin with, creating data. Right? I mean, creating data, the spectrum varies right from your high-end autonomous driving cars all the way down to your IoT nodes for home, industrial automation, infrastructure, and so on. I mean, the billions and billions of bytes of data being generated, which we've never seen in the past. So what does this mean? Right? For a startup, for a nimble startup, it gives amazing proportions to innovate and capture the market. I mean, every market today.
Excuse me, Nazir. I'd like every one of us to stick to the question and being asked. Can you please repeat your question, sir? That how do you integrate all the elements together in design?
No, the thing is, see, within a framework.
Yeah, within a framework.
Yeah.
How do you bring all these elements together?
Yes. Is there any?
And make sure everything is happy
Yeah,
between.
it's working very nicely. That for me, but it took long time to that.
Yeah, Master, can you please relate to that?
I'm more from the semiconductor market, so I can present my semiconductor stuff, right? Okay, so I'll quickly tell you what it takes, how the semiconductor market is, and then maybe we'll come to your integration question. Right? Okay, so there's a lot of opportunities for startup in data creation, right? Then there is data transmission. If you look at data transmission, there's so much innovation happening in data transmission, right from on-chip electronics like silicon photonics, all the way to narrowband IoT, 5G, and so on. So there's so much standards being described over here, right? So if you're actually a startup working on any of these technologies, there's so much opportunities in this field. And lastly, data processing. On one hand, we're talking about the horsepower of the processors, right? The sheer compute power. That itself is doubling every year. But more than the compute power of the processor, there are new technologies like AI and ML, which helps us to derive more value of the data, out of the data. So, we started seeing a lot of startups working in these areas, and I think if you're actually a startup who is actually planning to focus on one of these areas, there's a lot of opportunities for you. So, now coming back to your question, if you're looking at building an integrated product, okay, what ARM as a company and many other companies today they're offering is we're actually offering subsystems, right? Let's assume you're actually a company working on your own custom ASIC solution. Then in the past, you had to go about choosing IPs from different vendors and you had to integrate all by yourself. But today what ARM is doing is we're actually providing you something called as a reference data. So using this reference data, you can actually put together a whole SoC, system on chip, all by yourself. And you can actually work with the partners like IMEC and you can actually take it to production. So I'll probably give it to Jatinder to talk more about the production stage of SoCs.
Thank you very much. So I will very quickly say that what are the predictions associated with the semiconductor manufacturing and the end market. I think it will also cover one of your points. What we see that is it is the system that would be of a greater focus than the chips in the semiconductor domain. System and IP, they will be the watchdogs for the entire ecosystem, because now we are moving from chip centric, that means bringing the transistors on a semiconductor substrate to a system centric kind of design, that means integration of the functional blocks. So that's what is actually predicted by Electronic System Design Alliance also. So what we noted is that there is a move from, as I said, from chip-centric design to system-centric design is happening. The commercial products in the system design automation segment are getting to emerge. Okay, so therefore there are a lot of companies who are offering, companies like Siemens, who are having the entire set of product lifecycle management tools, which are covering not only the electronics, mechanicals traditionally, but also coming towards more towards the system integration, system tools. So that's what is happening in the market. For example, there is a because of this, there is another example of now people are working more on the chips, on the IP creation rather than doing the full SoC. So these IPs can directly go into the system manufacturer. So that's what is the new thing which is happening. So all the startups, I suggest all the startups to create IP so that they start selling their IP first, they get the revenues, probably then they can start thinking of doing their own products. Anyway, the IP what they are creating is also intended to be used in their own products later on, but at least create a unique IP. Let it be a small IP. Get it verified on a silicon so that the IP naturally generate more value for you. And then you sell to other system manufacturers, or you can use the same IP for your own product. So that is what my suggestion is to all the startups here.
Thank you, Jatinder. Sir, are you a startup, or what stage are you?
It's a long time. I started my work as a research work that I'm doing work on that exponential digital healthcare that is working for the past 22 years. Now only that framework came for that.
Are you getting incubated in the incubators or anything like that? So for a complete product, honestly, sir, you need electronic expertise, you need software guys, you need printed circuit board people, you need mechanical people, you need materials people, you need compliance,
Yeah.
you need safety. There is a
Exactly.
whole gamut.
Yeah.
Don't try to do everything alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Get good people along with you, or go to an incubator where you can get all this help.
That's why that I'm looking for partnership.
Who looks after your finances? Maybe that's the wrong question in this
No,
places.
partnership.
Or that's a, yeah. Okay. That would be a good way to go.
Partnership, yeah.
Can we have another question?
This is for all of you, and probably for all the MCAD, ECAD vendors as well. I see a lot of young crowd, so this is on behalf of them. Probably they will not open up, so on behalf of them, I'm asking this question. As a startup and looking to build a futuristic product, either in IoT space, which is related to either sensors or any particular domain, industrial, military, aero, medical. Now, initially for them, fund is a big problem. This is not related to funding. So their problem is about design. Now, in order to do the design, they need tools from either MCAD vendors or ECAD vendors, right? Generally, in the areas of any embedded product that is being built, embedded software is quite mature. Even open source software is pretty good, mature. So, for instance, embedded Linux. Whereas coming to MCAD and ECAD, not many open source software are mature. Now, the question is, how, as an MCAD or ECAD vendor, are you helping the startups, okay, to use these expensive tools, help them in designing these next futuristic products? That is one. Now, if they cannot afford it, can they go for open source route? Can they use open source tools if at all there are available?
Maybe I think Rajiv is the best person to answer that question.
Okay.
No,
well,
this is all four actually.
It's also
Because I see MCAD and ECAD side
This
as
is a
well.
very
They have
exciting
some
question
experience.
for anybody who's sitting over here, because it's directly nailing the business problem. But having said that, all of you should know that the design still comprises of two parts. One is the new product design, which is the MCAD of it, wherein you get a very good looking product, and that is what actually sells. And the other part of it is the ECAD part of it, the hardware, whatever is going on, semiconductor experience. Now, what a company is doing for it, and then can you use an open source? My first word would be no. You'll have to fight to get these tools which are already proven, because what I've seen, whatever little experience that I have, is that you're a startup, but then the future is startups. And for example, in my own company, my own business, last 3 years has been a big startup business that we're getting. Like for example, you see Tesla, or you see Jobby Aerospace, or you see CAD makers. So these are guys who are competing with the well-established players. Like in automotive, they're competing with BMWs of the world. In aerospace, they're competing with the Boeings of the world. Now, as a startup, you can't use the open source, which is maybe full or maybe a half-hearted one. So that is no. Don't use any open source thing. Now, coming to the point of how do you use a commercially available thing? One way of it is, okay, for MCAD, I think the base versions of it are always you get one license of it. Most of the companies give it for you for free. Like for example, our SolidWorks, for every startup we give. But the second part, if you want to have the full length of it and you want to cover the full RFLP approach, like the requirement, functional, logical, and the physical product, then that is where the big money is. So you can't buy all of it, and in case you start buying them, then all your fund, whatever you have, is not enough. So this is where we depend on governments, or this is where we depend on incubation hubs, where we have one center where we have all of this, and then you can come over here and work and then take the completed product. We have started it with some states.
Yes, that is.
Makers Village, we've just started it. That's the only way today available.
Exactly. Maker Village is investing a lot of money to get all these tools in so that the incubate companies there can use it free of cost. These kind of arrangements are being done. Already it is there. Even in Trivandrum, we are setting up such facilities. So that's why most of the startups are there, because it would make sense for them to be incubated there using all these common tools, rather than they buying one license each or something like that. I don't know whether I answered your question or he answered the question properly.
Did they answer?
But you're welcome to probe further.
The second biggest thing what you should know is that, okay, one is using the products, it can be Siemens, it can be Dassault, it can be ARM, anything. Second one is, don't always look for investments from the angel investors. There's no guy who's going to come and give you a bunch of dollars and say, oh, go and enjoy. So it's not going to be that easy. But all these companies have their own startup money. Okay? In case you're promising enough, in case your idea is promising enough, there's always a fund with all these companies. It's only that you should not sit inside your own school or inside your own small company. So you have to make a lot of noise, which I think Makers Village itself is not making enough. Today morning we have seen that. They just started. So you have to reach out to us with your ideas, and then maybe, who knows, there may be some fun with us which we haven't used it and we could use it.
I'd like to add a point to that, for example, because slowly we're going into tools and things like that. Our idea is to sit here and talk about where the future of design is going. So maybe we should slowly move there. And one of the points I want to tell is, as I was talking to Mr. Srinath today morning, he was mentioning, we all used to design systems. I've been a designer myself for maybe 18 years. We used to design systems looking at what is available to manufacture these designs. Now the manufacturing sector has opened up. Nazir, we were discussing actually before coming here. So you're not limited in thinking you should design like this, then only you can manufacture. Because for me, all my teams, I've worked in many companies, my first rule to my design engineers, don't design something which you cannot manufacture. It might be good, don't build a Taj Mahal for me. Build me something which will run the manufacturing like Taj Mahals. It's a classical example we used to tell, because a lot of companies have prototypes, you cannot replicate them. But all our designs are limited by manufacturing capability, but now it is not there. I can see Mr. Praveen Menon sitting here, who was my first boss. He gave me the first job as an engineer as I came out of engineering college. He asked me to design some solar systems. We used to design solar lanterns and things like that. Looking at those designs, I cringe now. It was around 4 years back. Because we can only have through hole components, there is no assembly manufacturer, there is no double-sided PCBs. My goodness, solar panels used to cost something like 250 rupees per watt. No sensible human being will buy that and keep it on their rooftops at the time. So design is changing, it is evolving. Where is it going to go, and how are you going to negotiate that and compete with other companies? Yes sir, please.
Yeah, this is for both of you. I want you to answer in two specific areas. So one, the startups right here, the students are some of the initial startups who have been there for 2-3 years. Most of them are starting with these ready-made platforms. Arduino, Raspberry Pi, Intel has its own, Freescale has its own. So all these semiconductor companies have their own reference platforms. It's good to begin with, but is it good enough for or to make the actual product that they have in their mind? Number one. Now, to design these PCBs for schematic, layout, DFM checks, whatnot, for eventually for manufacturing, again, open source versus proprietary tools. Second, so that is for the system side. Next, the IC side, similar. So you have some probably open source IPs and you have proprietary IPs. What is the best way to go?
I think this is a great question, right? You absolutely nailed it. If you look at what's happening in the Indian semiconductor industry, right? The number of successful companies who have taped out a chip, you can count in your fingers. Very, very few of them. In spite of India being such a huge country, in spite of us having so much VLSI talent, there are hardly very, very few successful startups. And one of the reasons for that is because two things, right? For someone who's designing the chip, he faces two hurdles. One, the IPs. The IPs are very, very expensive. Two, the EDA tools. The EDA tools are extremely expensive when it comes to chip design, right? So but the market is slowly changing, right? And one of the things that's actually happening in the industry, like if you look at what ARM is doing, ARM is making some of its processor cores available free of cost. So now let us say you want to design your own chip, you can just go visit a portal. On a click of a button, you will be able to download the complete RTL source code of a processor code. These developments never happened in the past. All these are happening in the past 1 or 2 years, right? So you have access to the complete RTL of a processor code, and from there on, you will also have access to some reference designs, and we will enable you to design your own chip. But that alone does not suffice, because you will still need those expensive EDA tools. For those EDA tools, like one of our co-panelists said, you can actually work with a lot of incubation centers. A lot of incubation centers have tie-ups with the EDA vendors, and they will be able to give you access to those EDA tools. So I think using a combination of these two, you will be able to design your own processor cores as in complete SoC, which did not happen in the past. So I think there is a good support system available today.
So just to add to your two questions, I will not comment on the EDA tools, what tools to be used or not, but certainly what we can add a value here is for the startups, we can hold their hands right from giving them the access to the technology nodes of their interest. If they are building an integrated circuit IC or chip based product, we can help them in setting up the flows. We can also help them during the design. For example, what libraries to be chosen, what IPs to be chosen, what is the correct PDK. Therefore, now tools you can, as everybody said, you can access now through incubation centers. Design enablement we can do from IMEC. We can also, because these startup companies, they will not have the EDA automation groups, we can also help you in setting up the design flows, and also help you in maybe giving you the reference flows for your first tape out, let me say like that. So all the way from EDA tool is covered by the EDA companies, enablement to the fab will be covered by us or any other company similar to us. So there are ways and means to do that. So I think today there is nothing which stops you to do chip projects. Earlier, normally people feel that it is very difficult to do their own chips. But what I tell to the startups, if they are having a really serious product and which is a differentiated product from anybody else, then obviously they should try to make the chip so that their IP is safeguarded for a few more years, so that they can, when their product actually come into market, they can really make some money before somebody copies them.
Next question.
I want to know that whether the Baker Village will, if we apply for a specific tool, whether they will.
No, we provide all the support normally to the incubating company. So you actually apply for incubation. So once you become an incubating company, yes, you get all the facilities of that ecosystem.
because I need a specific device that OSA, that optical spectral analyzer.
No problem, sir. We are agnostic towards technology. So,
I was struck on that.
have you applied any time to make a village before?
No.
Maybe you should. Just put in an application. We'll take it from there. Next question.
Google is designing its own ICs and chips in terabytes and things like that. And they have new platforms like TensorFlow. And GES predicts. So you're looking at a blockchain or an IoT at a larger scale. So how does one take this into consideration when doing design? Totally a different angle.
Okay, you need to understand this part of it. We don't understand semiconductor design, and they don't understand the product design. We are from both the product design and then the semiconductor design. So for
Google
startups,
has come out with terabytes with their own platform called TensorFlow, where you can integrate ML, AI, everything. So the whole design platform is changing. So even GE has got predicts. So everything is going to be on a different scale, just like we are using the Google browser today. So we are looking at totally different technologies. So
Okay,
you're looking at a very
I'll explain. So, those platforms you're talking about is for scaling up ideas. Is for what when you're incubating, when you're starting up, when you're bootstrapped, right? You cannot have access to those platforms.
Google is giving you a free option now with TensorFlow to free.
They will give you free, but will have limitations. I'll tell you that.
Predicts too from GE.
And predicts is they will very limited. They will not give the full functional. All the functions cannot be exposed. Otherwise, where will they make their money? Right. So the way they entice you is by giving a low cost or a free option with very limited functionality.
It could be the next
With
Google
Siemens,
browser.
I do it.
Yeah, it could be
I
the
do
next
it.
Google browser, maybe TensorFlow.
So I'll tell you the, I'll give you an example. I was part of an incubation center in Detroit, in Tech Town. My wife used to run a startup company there, so I'll give my views on how bootstrap companies are. So one is on the question of open source. A lot of companies, when you're bootstrapped, I recommend open source. Okay, but when you scale up, open source is not the way to go. You need proprietary tools. That is how you scale. Because with open source, I've not seen a single company being successful using open source. Yeah, of course, when they were very small, when you're bootstrapped, when you are a startup with very little resources, go for open source, no doubt. Okay, but when you want to scale, you have to build. Okay, this is where business models come in, right? So this is where the confluence of your business model with the technology model. That is where you have to marry these two. Okay, so when you build your business model, so everybody has a business plan, right? All the startup companies will need to have a business plan. Without a business plan, you're not a startup. Let me tell that openly, right? So in your business plan, you will have a 2-year goal. In fact, we'll have a 6-month goal. We'll have very early on, right? We'll have very monthly goals. And then as you start growing, we'll have yearly goals, right? In that business plan, you need to have placeholders for technology interventions, right? Because to support the product that you're making, you need technology. Why you need technology? You need technology to market. You need technology to support your product, service your product, right? For all these things you need technology. Without that, you cannot. You cannot expect that, okay, I have a product, I'm making this product, it will sell by itself. No. You will need, and after it sells, you need to have a mechanism or a platform to support that as well. That is where Predix comes in, or Siemens MindSphere comes in, right? Everybody has their own platforms, right? So you have these technologies that are now available. Thing is, you need to be careful what you choose and when you choose it. You cannot go for Predix when you're a startup. You cannot go for, again, Siemens MindSphere when you're a startup. You need to have the right scale for you to use that platform and to leverage that platform.
TensorFlow looks more comfortable because it's cross-platform and you can pay as you go.
Fantastic.
That's what I say from Google.
And the other thing is again, as a startup, please look at universities. Okay, I've lived abroad most of my life, so I can tell you that universities are the best place for a startup. It's heaven actually, because you have access to almost anything and everything. Okay. Just to give you some examples, in India what we're doing is Siemens as part of our CSR initiatives. About 5 years back we started working with the then Chief Minister of Gujarat, the now Prime Minister Modi ji. Right? So we set up labs. So Siemens funded these labs. And we have set these labs across multiple colleges in Gujarat. Right? And if you look at, just Gujarat as a state, the infrastructure was set up and now the companies are buying it. Same thing here. It can be done even in this state. Absolutely. So Siemens has done it across multiple states. So Gujarat was the first, and after that we kept on adding every state year by year or every 6 months. So you will find them in Jharkhand, right, Andhra Pradesh, right, Karnataka, so across multiple places. Okay, so please leverage universities. You have access to a lot of domain knowledge. I mean, the professors are unbelievable. They have so many ideas. You can validate, right? And also, please reach out to, and universities also have this special, I would say, attachment through alumni, right? So reach out to various alumni from these universities, right? And you will find unbelievable resources who can mentor you, who can guide you, and who can make sure that you're on the right track, right? Because as a startup, most important thing is you need a strong sounding board. What I mean by that is, if you explain your product to somebody, whether they understand it or not is something you need to know. And how much of it is understood, how much of it is not understood, because you need to keep refining it. And that is where the concept of a live business plan helps you. So you need to have a live business plan with milestones for technology interventions, for investments that will help you grow.
Thank you, Srinath. Next question, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, in India, we have technology right now. We are having manufacturing. Why not we are seeing the startups coming in a different sector? So, what is the main thing which is lacking? Is it the design, or is it the platform which is required? Right? Because anyway, we are having Xiaomi, Apple, all are available in our country. But if you see from our country, it is only a Micromax. So where we are lacking?
One thing you should understand, Microsoft, the names you said, most of it are run by Indians, accidentally.
But they are abroad.
But they are abroad.
Yeah.
That's a paradox. Half of us would have been abroad or at one point of our career or in our past life. There are a lot of things we need to understand the ecosystem, India's history with that. We started as a young country with a lot of our own issues, which we are slowly leveraging and converting it into our advantages. Manufacturing and technology, I don't think those existed some decades back. Slowly picking up. Now we have around 180 incubators, 40 or 60,000 startups. I think the startup ecosystem started to be alive maybe a few years back. If you look at all the developed nations, they would have had a startup ecosystem far back. And to specifically answer your question, there is something behind. First, what happens? Research happens. Then that gets translated into technology. That gets translated into applications and products. There's a huge gap between this and fundamental science. That's where your research starts. So this is something like a chain. We cannot jump in just in between and say, oh, we'll just have the technology and products made, thanks. You need actually the fundamental science and your research to back it up. One number I want to share with you. Our entire nation's research spending was less than that of Stanford University last year. Just please go and check out all our research labs. 84 CSIR labs, no offense, is less than the research spending of one university. And look at strategies. You mentioned Apple. Apple has got a different DNA. Very few phones, very few products, closed ecosystem, take it or leave it. Android is there on the other side, open ecosystem. Poor Samsung has to make 300, 400 models, different hardware. Just imagine validation on all these models compared to validation on just 1 or 2 models. They are both selling phones, but they have 2 different strategies. Can you imagine Apple selling 200 different models of phones, and Samsung will say, I'll sell only 1 type of phone, what will happen? Or 2 type of phones. So, that's a complex question, but it will eventually happen. A lot of things are changing.
I agree, it's a philosophical question as well, but very short view, okay, very short view on this question. So, if you look at the history of India, our culture outdates any other country. Okay, so if you leverage on that history, if you leverage culture of our country, you can do more. Look at Patanjali. Right? Don't just look at technology, go beyond. Look at Patanjali. What they did is they are disrupting the FMCG market. Completely disrupting it. They'll be around, I don't know, they're growing, doubling every year, tripling every year. Right? You can look up the numbers. So there is potential provided you have the right passion and you have the right, let's say, the internal push to succeed. And Patanjali succeeded because they knew that this is the right products that will hit the market, that will be successful, and they knew how to market those as well. So they have been very successful. I'm sure you can see, if you're trying to ape somebody else, right? Apple was the first company to create an iPod. Right? Somebody else had created a digital media system. Right? And then Apple just successfully copied that model in their own way. Right? So you can do two things. One is successfully copy somebody else. It is possible. The other one is don't copy somebody else. Come up with something on your own. Right? How do you compete with Procter & Gamble, or you compete with Unilever or these large, huge multinational companies? It has happened, and Patanjali has done it. That's because they built their DNA around, their design around something the country wants. Everybody identifies yourself as an Indian, right? And then when you say that I'm buying this product for India, then they figured out that's the best market. They leveraged it and they monetized it. That's what you need to do.
And the trend is also changing. There are some really interesting companies working in India on some amazing technologies. In fact, we have a company in India which actually works on disposable ECG stickers. So instead of your traditional wiring that needs to be done to your body to measure your ECG signals, it's just a sticker. You stick it on your different parts of the body. It measures it, and after the use, you can just throw it off. Or wireless that transmits the signals. So these sort of innovations are happening. There are companies which is working on India's own navigation system. Instead of relying on US for GPS, we have a constellation. It's called IRNSS. So there are companies which are working towards designing chip using IRNSS. So if you ask me, I think the trend is changing. It could have been much faster, but unfortunately it is not. But hopefully, if this trend continues, I think we will start to see a lot of really good products coming out of India.
I'm still surprised to hear this question.
Yeah.
What I've heard from my side is that students are ditching their degrees and then starting a new company. But then you're saying that there are not many startups.
In that field, specific field.
You don't need to. The startup need not grow. Apple didn't grow overnight. So there are a lot of startups which are coming. By the time we finish this talk, there will be 4 startups which have come in Bangalore, but 4 out of 5 of them failed. You can see me. I failed twice in the startup. It doesn't matter. So if you sustain that 3-4 times science order will be, that's when you will have a great company.
I think we are holding everyone's lunch, so we can take maybe one more question and then we will break the session. Anyone? Okay, I'd like to thank you very much. Sorry for starting late. I'd like to thank my panel members and all of you. Thank you very much.